Holy Spirit, we ask for your presence to be with us as we begin this adoration, this time of adoration. Lord, we pray that we would be open to all the graces that you desire for us to receive. That if we haven't been open at all up until today during adoration, that in this last day of adoration we could be fully open to all that you desire to give us. Pray for Father Dollins as he speaks to us this morning for the priest during confession, and for all of our hearts, that we could be present, truly present at this time set aside. Pray all this in your holy Spirit. Amen. All right. A few housekeeping things. There are priests available for confession starting now. I think there's one or two in the back here already. And then Father Dollins will be available for confessions after he gives his talk over in Father Paul's office. All right. I'm going to introduce to you our speaker, Father Randy Dollins. If you could pull up the next slide for me.
Oh, there's slides.
Father Dollins grew up in Aurora. Who lives in Aurora? I do. Represent. Guys, bear with me. Come on. It's a Queen of Peace parish. So those of you who are Queen of Peace. He became a graphic designer, and after that, he went to NET, the National Evangelization Team. Have you guys heard of that, or been to a NET retreat before? So they travel around the country giving retreats to a lot of people your age, middle schoolers, things like that. So after that, he realized his call to the priesthood, entered seminary in Denver. Yeah, catch up with me. It's all good. After that, he graduated from Regis University and was ordained a priest. Awesome. I don't have to give years. That's okay. He's ordained a priest. Ordained a priest, went up to St. Mary and Our Lady of Peace in Silverthorne. Who goes skiing and sometimes goes to Mass in Silverthorne or Breckenridge there? He was the pastor up there for 4 years. You were parochial vicar for 2, and then pastor for...
I was someplace else before that, but that's okay.
Anyway, that was where I met him because he hired me to be his director of religious education and youth ministry up there. So I worked with and for Father Randy for 1 year up there before he was called and summoned down to the Archdiocese, where he is now the Vicar General, basically the right-hand man to the Archbishop. So before I introduce him, though, however, there's one thing I want to show. The picture. This is, since we have Father Randy here and Mr. and Mrs. Buckingham, I just thought I would say I won this toucan in our NCAA bracket tournament. Thank you. I am the winner. They were all in the bracket, and Father Dollins was making a lot of jokes about how he had room for a toucan in his house. Mrs. Buckingham won it for 2 years in a row. Mrs. Buckingham is here today with their son Everett, so say hello to little Everett and Mrs. Buckingham. She's going to hate me. All right, so I just thought I would rub it in their face. He looks pretty happy in my house. I'm just saying. Okay. All right, you guys, so without further ado, I will invite Father Randy Dollins up to talk to us this morning. So give him a round of applause.
Thank you. So on Monday I had some free time, and I had on my calendar, I needed to think about what I was going to say to you guys. I didn't have anywhere to write it down, so there was a Dollar Tree. Does anyone ever go to Dollar Tree? Anyone? So I went to Dollar Tree, and check it out, I had this nice green and gold notebook. I thought that's perfect for writing down some thoughts about what I was going to say at Machebeuf. So I heard this quote on Tuesday, and I thought it related to my topic. It is from St. John of the Cross. Here it is. Where there is no love, put love, and you will find love. Where there is no love, put love, and you will find love. Somebody talking about love today. How many people in here have ever been to DIA? Anyone? Okay, yeah. All right, so a few times ago, I had a great revelation when I was at DIA. I got off my flight. I'm headed down to where the trains are. I'm on that, just getting onto that second set of escalators as it's going down, and I see the train pull in, and the doors are about to open, and I start to do the calculation. I want to make that train. But there's a full escalator of people. We're like slowly going down, and I'm trying to figure out, am I gonna be able to get on that train? Right when we get to the bottom, can I run? We're getting closer. I'm looking at this lady in front of me. I'm like, I could squeeze around her suitcase, jump over that guy's suitcase, and then maybe I'll make it to this train. I decided not to do it. I'm not that athletic that I'm going to probably wipe out on the escalator. But as soon as we get to the bottom, like I'm ready to maneuver around them, but we get to the bottom, and just when I could get around them, the doors are closing. So I have to go and I have to stand there. You know how long I had to wait for the next train? Like 60 seconds. It was awful. It was awful. So then I got on the train, and I was sitting there, and sure enough, standing right by me on the train was this woman who I wanted to kind of force my way around, and the guy who I was going to jump over his suitcase. And I looked at them, and I realized I really don't love them. I was like, these people were obstacles to me, right? I wanted to get on that other train, and I was viewing these people as my adversary. And as I looked at them further, and I was thinking, man, I had to wait 60 seconds because, I wasn't going to, push these people out of the way. And I realized kind of a poverty in that I viewed these people, right, as my adversary. But not just those people. So many times in my life, I view other people that are around me as my adversary, as obstacles, as people I'm in competition with, but not as my neighbor who I ought to love. And so I'm not really putting love in there. I'm putting some kind of anger or sometimes hatred. And those of you who have your driver's license and are driving, you know what that's like with the road rage. Kind of everyone, it's very easy to start seeing everyone else as an adversary. Now, there is a quote that I like. It's been said that the greatest argument against Christianity is Christians. Think about what that statement might mean. The greatest argument against Christianity is Christians. Brothers and sisters, I think if you can grasp what that is that as Christians, we don't do the best job of being Christians, of loving others. I heard this testimony a few months ago. It was great. This woman had talked about how she got into an altercation with somebody else in a parking lot over who was pulling into a space or whatnot. And when she finally got out of her car, she yelled at the other woman about, how dumb she was or something like that from it. And then she's walking into the store where she parked, and there's glass doors on the store. And as she walked up, you know what she saw in the glass doors? She saw the ash cross on her forehead because she had just gone to Mass on Ash Wednesday. And she realized at that very moment, I am not a very good example of Christianity. Here I am with an ash cross on my head because I'm trying to live out my faith. And I just yelled at this woman over a parking lot, parking space dispute. And so many times that can be us, is that we know what God's will is and we're trying to live it out in our lives, but we don't tend to be the greatest examples of Christ's love. I think that we know what Christianity and piety and love looks like, but a lot of times we're not actually able to live it out. If you knew someone was watching and trying to expect that you might be a good Christian, you could probably put on the show, right? You know how to look pious or what holiness is supposed to look like and how to be overly nice to people. If you were on a reality show as the Christian, Catholic high school student, you could probably put on the show so long as someone's watching. But when you don't think someone's watching, right? That the question is, are we really living out who Christ is asking us to be? Let's say we are going to institute a contest here at Machebeuf, and we're going to give you some prize you really wanted, like a 2-week trip to Italy and the Greek Isles, and it was going to be who was the most pious and holy student at Machebeuf. And so we were going to give the teachers all like scorecards, and they were going to keep track for a couple of weeks. Some of you would be like, yeah, I'm not part of that. I can't put on the show that long. But, others, maybe there's some authentic piety that would come out of that. It might actually lead you to greater holiness. I think what it would do is kind of make people look at each other like, yeah, look who's nice now. I know who you are when there's not a contest. Right? It would be kind of a fake Christianity. So that's one thing. But what if I was to tell you that in my jacket pocket right here, I have an envelope because we already ran that contest, except you didn't know. And that for the past month, a number of teachers and Father Paul and Miss Brennan have all been trying to say, who exemplifies a good Christian who loves their neighbor in this school? And that they've selected a couple winners. Now I want you to think about it. Don't look at people or whatever. Think about, who do you think they might have chosen in your school? And for what reasons might they have chosen that person? Now this is just a thought exercise. There wasn't actually a contest, okay? So there wasn't one. But I think there's this, is that if you take a moment to think about what are some of the great qualities in some of the other students here that have been a good example, then that starts to make you think, what is this about them that's different than me? So many times, even like today, I was reading about the saint of the day, and I realized, I was like, wow, this guy's a lot holier than me. And I don't want to be defeated by that, but it's like the Lord was encouraging me that there's still a good distance to go for me to become a saint. And I think we can reflect upon that when we think about some of our fellow students who might have some qualities of holiness and piety that we could try to emulate in our lives. The reason that it would be hard for us to put on a show for a long period of time is that we can fake love, but real love can't really be faked. We could lust after someone. We could shower someone with gifts and praises and things like that. But to really love someone, it's hard to fake it because real love requires a sacrifice. It means that I don't get my way all the time, and that I look for what is the good of the other. And real love sometimes includes not making the other person happy because I have to be the virtuous friend who calls them on to a greater level of holiness, to a greater morality. And that's tough love. To be able to tell a friend, what you're doing, it's not the right thing, and I love you. The reason I'm telling you is not because I want to think I'm better than you and correct you, but I love you and I want to call you towards something else. See, real love needs sacrifice. And so if we're really going to be Christ's disciples, Christ says, this is how they will know you are my disciples. If you love one another. That was the gospel last weekend at Mass, and maybe you heard a homily on that. And if no one's watching, would anyone know that you are one of Christ's disciples? Another question, or to think about, would be to say, if you were arrested for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Are we truly trying to live out our faith? So we could go after the big things, and I think that authentically trying to be a Christian, we'll end up trying to do the big things, like big service projects, corporal works of mercy, spiritual works of mercy. We're going to end up on a mission trip. And the big things come, but in honesty, just like weightlifting, true virtue and love it starts small. And we build up our muscles of virtue and love for others. And I would say, just like that day at DIA, it cost me 60 seconds when I missed that train. And in reality, I was headed to the baggage claim. And so the people on the train before me got to stand at the baggage claim for 15 minutes, and I got to stand there for 14 minutes because I spent that extra minute waiting for the next train. A lot of times in our lives, the things when we see other people as obstacles that are getting in the way, or good deeds as something that gets in the way, it's not really that much time. It's a deception of the evil one. And if we were to really take account and just try to live out all of the good ideas that come into our head about who we ought to be, the deception comes in and says, oh, you don't have time for that, or that would be too much effort. But if we were actually to dedicate ourselves to that, we realize it's not that big of a deal. You know, all the ways that I can just ease up and let people not be my adversary, not be an obstacle, at the end of the day, I have to surrender like 5 or 10 minutes. And I have a lot less stress and anxiety, and I'm starting to grow that love because I look at situations and I'm like, it's not that big a deal if I have to wait in line for an extra 2 minutes. You know, that these people are just as important as I am. And then I can start to look upon them as my neighbor, whom I should love, rather than as an obstacle. If we go through our day and listen to the promptings in our head, which are often promptings of the Spirit, or maybe they're just promptings from, we know right from wrong, of, there's a piece of trash there, I should probably pick it up and throw it in the trash can, or I should let this person merge in traffic, or I can let this group of people kind of get by before I have to force my way into my locker, or something like that, just easing back. Do we realize that there's plenty of time, and when we get to the end of the day, we actually feel a lot better about ourselves and our lives because love has entered in where there was kind of this anger and stress that can often be there. And so what I'm talking about is authentic fulfillment that we can find in our lives. And so I'm trying to give you guys a little bit of food for thought. When we bring out the Eucharist and you're going to have some time to pray and to think. And I just want you to think about, are there ways that I look at my neighbor as my adversary, as someone I'm in competition with? And a prayer could be, Lord, help me see them with your eyes, so that I can look upon them with love. Because this way of going through life, if you can make it a foundation of who you are as a teenager, right, it can take you all the way through and help you to avoid a lot of hassles in life that you don't have to deal with if you're viewing people that way. Let's look at that quote again. Where there is no love, put love, and you will find love. And a lot of times, the place where there is not love is in my own attitude and the way that I'm viewing my neighbor. But when I inject love into that situation, I find that I pull love back out. I'm going to give you a small way that I have found to turn an adversary or an obstacle, right, into a relationship of love. And it's short, but you guys have probably noticed driving around, and if you're not driving, you're riding with your parents, that at a lot of intersections in Denver, we have panhandlers. Have you seen that? A lot of times you pull off the freeway and there's people standing there with signs, and for various things, they need money. And I struggle with that because, I've read articles about how some of those people are fake, right? That they're making hundreds of dollars a day and they're doing just fine and they're just putting on their dirty clothes. Or you think, oh, maybe they're using the money for something bad, like they have a drug problem or an alcohol problem and they're just going to go use it for that. But I was really convicted by someone who was just saying, it's not your job to worry about that. Right? Your job is, this is someone who's saying, I have a need. How can you love them in that moment? And so I did something. I took all the dollar bills out of my wallet and I put it in my visor. There's like a little vanity mirror there. So I put it in the vanity mirror. And every once in a while, if I notice I have a few extra dollars, I'll just put my dollar bills up there. And then, instead of pulling up to these stoplights, because I'm always wearing my collar and thinking, I don't want them to know that I'm a priest because they're going to expect I'm going to give them something. Instead of thinking that they're an obstacle or someone to avoid, now that I know I've got those dollar bills super handy, I'm actually looking for the situation when I get off. And on that first car at the end, is there someone around here? I'm looking for that opportunity to not only hand them $1, which isn't that much money, but just to say and look at them and say, God bless you. It could be the smallest part. I don't know what it's going to do for their day. In that moment, it's going to be a good moment for them because their goal is to get more money for, I hope, for good reason. But then I'll have a moment to give them just an ounce of love. And then I'm on my way. But at least I'm trying to interject, instead of a situation of an adversary, to a situation where I love my neighbor. And I was thinking about this. There's other ways that we can do this. So often we get caught in long lines or in a busy crowd or something like that. Things that we think are, we're upset about. If we just pull back and look around and say, who can I love in this situation? Who can I love? Typically, if we're in a big situation like that and we pull back and we look, we're going to see a couple things. One thing I see is, I love it. I'll see people that are happy and joyful. And I kind of look at them and I delight in the fact that they have joy in their life. But you might look for someone who's struggling to carry something that you could rush and open the door for. Maybe they're just looking down. And you could look for, what is one way I could just approach this person, pay them a compliment and leave? That I could love them just a little bit. A couple days ago, I wasn't wearing my collar, and I was out somewhere, and out of blue, someone who didn't need anything from me just said, "Oh, I like your glasses," and then they went on. Now, I don't know that I have the best glasses ever. If you wear glasses, you know what that's like when you go to the store and you're trying on like 100 different sets of glasses at the place, and you're like, well, these look pretty good for the shape of my head, so I'll take them. But this lady just walked by, she said, "Oh, I like your glasses." I don't know if it didn't change my life. And over the course of the day, it made my day a little better. But in that one moment, I was like, yeah, great. I just felt good. It's like I was, in some small way, loved. Brothers and sisters, we can go on a mission trip to a faraway country and we can do amazing things. And that's not bad. But so often, just in our day-to-day interactions with our neighbor, right, that's where the love starts. And it can start to build. And then it can become a reflex and an action that in any situation we're in, we're looking to be the person who looks to see if there's love that needs to be shown here, right? Because that is truly who we are as Christians. Jesus Christ says, this is how they will know that you are my disciples. Because you love one another. People don't care about the dogma of the Trinity, about our position on life and all these other things, so much as they care about if we love them first. And this is what Pope Francis has really been preaching, is that we need to love people first, and then all the other things that are complex or might be more difficult to comprehend morally, they'll come from the love. But it's hard to love somebody through a really strict moral argument that they don't have any stake in. And so I just want to encourage you, in this time we have for prayer, and maybe this is something you need to bring to confession, is think about how you view your neighbor. Are they an obstacle, or are they an opportunity for love? Where there is no love, put love, and you will find love. St. John of the Cross. Thank you.